Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la. Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la. Barechu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed, Le'olam va'ed. Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la.
הנה מה טוב ומה נעים שברחים גם יחד. 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 How good it is, how sweet it is, to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is, to be together on this day. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים שברחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים שברחים גם יחד. שלום עליכם, סלאם עליכום. שלום עליכם, סלאם עליכום. שלום עליכם, סלאם עליכום. שלום עליכם, סלאם עליכום. How good it is, how sweet it is, to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is, to be together on this day. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים שברחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב
Our service is beginning. Eli, Eli, shelo yigamer leolam, hachol v'hayam, rishru shel hamayim, merak hashamayim, tfilat Adam, hachol v'hayam, rishru shel hamayim, merak hashamayim, tfilat Adam. O God, my God, I pray that these things never end. The sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart, the sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart.
There's a bridge at the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. Surrounding that bridge are hundreds of pictures of individual people and their families. It is the entire collective memory of a small town in Poland. Visitors see this pictorial collage about midway through their visit, and then, near the very end, they come across the same collage, but with a description attached to it. The description that reminds us almost everyone from this town perished in the horrors of the Holocaust. Our job every day, and especially today, is to recall the individual lives, 6 million Jewish lives, 11 million people, that were taken at the hands of the Nazis. Each person who died had a name, an identity, a whole life, a beautiful story. As we all gather here today, to remember, to bear witness, we take on that obligation to hear one individual's story, and then to share that story and those that we know to ensure that never again truly means never again, and our people continue to flourish and grow, to love and prosper. I would like to thank our fellow clergy from Fairfield County, as well as the Federation for partnering with us on this evening. And I would like to thank members of our Temple Israel family for supporting us in planning this evening. Lisa Friedland, Annette Kay, Mark Friedman, and Helen Martin Block. We are so grateful to all be here together. And unfortunately, as I mentioned, so many souls were lost. Fortunately, so many were miraculously saved, and some are still with us today, and some of their families are still with us today. I would like to honor a few of them with lighting a candle in honor of those 6 million Jews who died. If you are a relative of someone who survived, I'd invite you to come up and help light our candles this evening.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו, ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו, ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו, ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו, ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו, ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן.
Good evening. This poem is entitled Beloved Eternal. For the survivors of the Shoah, the dark hallways of Holocaust museums and quiet memorials, the movies and documentary films, Sunday mornings in Hebrew school, our teacher reminding us to always remember and never forget. That haunting mourner's Kaddish, camp names intertwined with praise to God. Where were you? For all the yahrzeit candles lit by children and grandchildren, as onlookers cry and ask why. Who shall live and who shall die? A night of broken glass, Elie Wiesel, a lost child. In darkness, a broken sunrise. A forest blooms in Zion, Jerusalem. We remember Yizkor. We cry Zachor for our 6 million, beloved, eternal.
Hello, my name is Paul Berger, and I have some prepared remarks, but it's a little bit more difficult climbing the stairs these days, but I think that I could read okay, but I'll try my best. So it's good evening. My name is Paul Berger, and it's my great pleasure to introduce a dear friend of more than 40 years, Mike Schell. If it were not such a solemn day, I would tell you jokes about Mike, but not tonight. Some of you may have seen and heard Mike speak yesterday at the Westport Library as part of the Shoah Memorial Fairfield presentation. Hold on a minute. And I want to assure you that you will hear this evening is not a duplicate. Mike always brings fresh insight and personal reflections to his story. Mike was born in Europe on the eve of World War II, is a Holocaust survivor. After the war, he rebuilt his life in the United States and has since devoted himself to ensuring that the lessons of the Holocaust are never forgotten, dedicating his life to education, remembrance, and bearing witness. So let me introduce you to my friend, Michael Schell. Please come up and tell these people your story. Thank you.
I'll do my best. I just want to tell you that Jews have this wonderful ability to make jokes in times of sorrow also. So don't expect this to be a very heavy presentation, but it tells a serious story that I think it's important to share. Can you all hear me okay if I don't? I can move in front of it. That's going to be better. So just as a little bit of background to you, I don't, unlike my dear friend Paul indicated, I've kind of devoted my life to helping people understand each other better and build effective communications together. I created a business, a company, that really helps people work efficiently together in constructive everyday interactions and create organizations that are constructive, inclusive, involved with, and caring for each other, and successful. I never thought about it very much, but I kind of think that my background led me to this, and Paul reminded me that that's what it did. So let me share the story with you a little bit and give you a little background. By the way, my sister, who I will introduce here, Rita Ross, who sheltered me a great deal through my whole episode. She was 2 years older than me, but she was magnificent. She passed away a couple of months ago, but her life was truly devoted to teaching about the Holocaust, and she spoke about it, she wrote books about it. She was featured in, and she too, by the way, was an artist, a pianist, a wonderful pianist and musician. But this was kind of carrying on Rita's tradition, so I'm doing it for her too. So just let me show you some photographs to put the whole story into context for you. And by the way, as we talk, if somebody has a question, you don't have to wait till the end. I'm pretty comfortable picking it up and talking about it, and it's going to make the whole conversation a little more interactive. So if you want to, raise your hands and we'll try to respond to it. But I want to show you, these are my parents. My mother was born in a little town called Wieliczka, outside of Krakow. She was a daughter of one of 13 children, 4 of whom survived the Holocaust. And a very elegant lady. She went to the finest schools. She went to a music conservatory in Berlin. She was a magnificent musician and a very elegant woman of her time, very worldly. And what's important about that is I'm going to tell you what a hero she was, because with that background, she became a survivor and a magnificent, strong, powerful woman that sheltered us and my sister and I through this whole experience we'll talk about. My dad came from a very, very religious family. He was a successful businessman. They married and they lived in Vienna. And they were modern people. They had friends. They lived in a nice community, My dad would hang out in coffee houses with his friends, with people. They were sophisticated Europeans who overnight experienced a life-changing, almost overnight for them. So that was them. These are some stories of us as children that I wanted to kind of give you a sense. That's my sister and I through the experiences, and you can see by the pictures how the mood changes. And I thought it was pretty touching to put that together. That last picture was one that was taken for us as we were, I think, as we were about to, maybe when we went into the Krakow ghetto or something like that, I'm not sure. So this wonderful life that my parents had in Vienna was shattered. I was born in 1937. I'll talk about that a little bit, but in 1938, the world crashed around them. So I just thought I'd stick in one horrible picture like that. We ended up in the Krakow ghetto, and I never saw that attractive outside of it because it was really a disaster when you got into it. So that's kind of some of the pictures. I want to show you this Montolupi prison, which was the worst place that one could imagine. And I got this photograph, and it reminded me there's a child. We were stuck in one of those rooms, probably with 100 people in a small room. And I always was to ask my mother, why is there a steel plate over the window? You have no light coming in. There's only this little fine light coming in from the top. There's a museum in Berlin, if any of you have gotten to the Jewish Museum in Berlin, that has a room that depicts the Holocaust and has this, it's a dark room with twisted walls and a little bit of light, and that's exactly what that place was like. So I want to just give you a sense, before I get into the story, of what the setting was that we were in. I have another story about this truck that I'm going to kind of tell you later on, so I just wanted to make sure it was in here to remind me. Paul insisted I tell this story today, so I kind of throw it in. This is a wonderful picture. And I just got to point out to you. Can you imagine, this is my sister, mother, and I in the prison of war camp. This is my sister, mother, and I in the prison of war camp. I'm going to step back at you so you can hear me. I'm sorry. That's okay. And the letter on the left side of the screen, or sorry, the right side of the screen, is the letter that my father got from the State Department. And basically, I wanted to come out here. It says that we're pleased to inform you that your wife and children have been found and are on their way to the United States. I cannot imagine the emotion that my father had when he got that. Okay, so I want to tell you the travels before I get into the detail here, because the travels are interesting. We started off in Vienna, and as you'll see when I tell the story, we go to Krakow or to Liebenau. But we go to Krakow because my mother's family lived there. We went from Krakow to Auschwitz. From Auschwitz, we went to a prison of war camp in Germany, and then traveled through Switzerland and came to the United States through Marseille. I didn't think about that until I did this map for this talk. But that's, maybe 1,200 miles that we traveled by foot, by truck, by train, by cart, which is a hell of an adventure for a 7-year-old on the way to the U.S. So that's kind of where the whole story starts. Okay, now I'm going to get into the episodes as we go along, okay? So I was born to an Orthodox Jewish family, modern family, living a very lovely life in Vienna in 1937. It makes me 88 right now, which is one of the reasons I'm doing this, because I think I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel to find survivors here who are going to be able to speak. So it's my turn here to get up and do this. But as we know, a year after I was born, Kristallnacht happens, and my father realizes that we got to get out of there. This is not a place that a Jewish family can live in any longer. So he says to my mother, and he gets papers for us, by the way. Any of you pianists, musicians here? My cousin was a great musician, the greatest interpreter of Beethoven. Arthur Schnabel was his name. There's still great records about him. He was my first cousin. He came to the U.S. and he managed to get papers to my parents. And so my father found a way that he could get here, but the whole family couldn't get here right away. So what he decided is that he would come, set things up for us, and have my mother, sister, and I follow. And in the meantime, we would go to Poland to my mother's family. They had a big estate in Poland. As I mentioned, they were a wealthy family. They had a big estate. And who could imagine that in 1938, right, whatever I'm looking at over here, we went to Poland, and the world fell apart, as we know, right? By the way, just to give you a little bit of a sense of what the family was, when we all had to escape from Poland, we had to hide in Poland. Somebody saying something? My maternal grandmother took her chauffeur-driven Rolls Royce to Russia for safety. So nobody expected what would happen, obviously, to come about. I got to look at what this says because I can't see it. So as we know, Poland fell to the Nazis. We had to get out, and we went and started to hide. And my mother, who I just showed you, an elegant lady, becomes the most brilliant survivor, hiding my sister and I, moving us from place to place, keeping us alive, and me feeling secure. I never felt like I was in trouble. I mean, I guess I did, but I always felt secure because my mother had this great love and this great passion and this strength that was able to permeate everything we were doing. But we hid, and we hid in crazy places, in basements of factories, in cemeteries, because the Nazis wouldn't look for us in cemeteries. And Poland was a horrible winters, to spend time out there. My sister tells a story that I don't remember, that I somehow had a coat that my mother had made for me out of blankets that she found, that she knitted and sewed a coat together for me. And one day in Poland, somebody stole that coat. A guy came along and stole my coat. So I went through the winter, my sister says, without a coat. We made me ready for skiing in Wyndham with Paul, It's kind of, but things were interesting, and she was amazing. We went to the ghetto, the Krakow ghetto. I mentioned the story yesterday, but I'm going to mention it again. The Krakow Rebbe, who was a patron, my maternal grandfather took care of him greatly. He sheltered us for a little while in the ghetto, but he made us leave because he explained that everybody in the ghetto, he knew everybody in the ghetto was going to die. So what happened with him was that I was put in his bed to go to sleep, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and the little boy remembers the story. There was a red blanket on the bed, and the blanket was crawling with lice that were coming in and out of his white beard, white lice, and I kind of thought this was the greatness of this man. He had all these energy that would flow out to go fill the space. But there were a lot of, my mother was able to pass because she was blonde and blue-eyed and fluent in many languages. So she was going in and out of the ghetto, getting food for the people and bringing it in. I had an aunt, one of my mother's sisters, and her daughter. We left the ghetto because we could. They couldn't. They stayed and hid in the ghetto. And after everybody in the ghetto was killed, they waited for another 2 weeks in a basement hiding, and they left. And my aunt walked to Hungary, dropped off her daughter at a monastery, and somehow made her way to Israel. And in 1945, after the war, she came back and found the monastery and got her daughter back. There are wonderful stories of this kind of heroism that went on. But anyway, eventually, we were captured and sent to this horrible, horrible place called Montolupi, this prison, which was, I mean, it's indescribable. But whatever you can imagine as being horrible, it was worse. And we were there for several months, and then from there, we get taken to Auschwitz. Okay, so now I'm at Auschwitz, right? So the truck that you saw there, I said I'll tell you a little bit about that. We went to, it's not that far from Krakow to Auschwitz, but any of you might have known. So we went by truck. And coming off the truck, I was a 5-year-old boy. I did not know how to come down a ladder. And the Gestapo, who was standing there, the guard, saw me not wanting to come down face first. And he said, no, that's not the way you do it. You come down the ladder backwards. And then he had me practice a couple of times how to how to go up and down a ladder. And it occurs to me today that little tiny bit of humanity that he showed is something that lives with me for 80 years. And I remember something kind about this person who I cannot imagine was a kind human being. But it just reminds us that showing compassion, a little kindness, goes such a long way in people's lives and to what it can do for people. It's just special. And so he stays alive in my memory. So we are now in Auschwitz. And I remember things that happened there, and we weren't there very long, and I'll tell you why. But they put us into these massive showers and sprayed us with DDT because we were so lice-infested from that place, although I can't imagine that Auschwitz was much better. Hose people down, and after we get cleaned up, we get taken to be processed. My mother, my sister, I'm 5, my sister is 7. And we get taken to being processed. So now, going back to my dad in the U.S. My father came to the U.S. and moved to Philadelphia. And here's a man who was very smart, very well educated, took a job in a factory, and became a union member, didn't want to do anything else because he was such a religious guy. He didn't want to violate the Sabbath, so the union protected him. And he became a factory worker. He did that all his life. A brilliant, brilliant man. But what he does is that he discovers that in Philadelphia there was a fire in the city hall, and all the records were destroyed. So if you could produce a family Bible or any evidence of your birth, you could get a new birth certificate. So he goes to a Jewish scribe, a sofer, and gets inscribed in a family Bible my mother's birth, her marriage to him, the birth of the children, and he takes that to the city hall, gets a birth certificate for my mother, brings that birth certificate to the Red Cross, tells the Red Cross that my family is lost somewhere in Europe, and we get standing in front of the Gestapo in Auschwitz, and the guy picks up a piece of paper and says, "Oh, you people don't belong here. You're American citizens." My mother says, "Certainly we are." You know, she held the stuff together, and says, "We have to ship you to a civilian prison of war camp," which is where we went to a place called Liebenau, which is a civilian prison of war camp in southern Germany, which is part of this whole trip. Now we went all the way across. I remember when we got to Liebenau, people got off the truck, women, and they gathered up grass because they hadn't seen grass and were eating grass. I asked my mother, I remember asking her, what are we going to do with the grass? She told me they eat it, which is pretty astonishing. But Liebenau was a wonderful place to be, comparatively speaking. I learned to speak English, I learned to speak French, I learned to speak Dutch, which I've forgotten all about, but it was a great place to grow up. It was not a great place by other standards. The German guards would have sport. We would be able to play in the fields, the children, and they would run their dogs after us, which was a horrible, horrible thing. But that was the worst of a Holocaust experience. I'll take it, you know, on a scale of whatever those horrors are. So we got freed, and came to America. By the way, the trip to America was also something worth mentioning. It's quite a trip from Liebenau through Switzerland, down through France to Marseille. I was very sick as a child, and they put us on a truck. This was in January of 1945, I think. Yes. And we come in a truck to Switzerland. I'm very sick. I've got boils all over my body. No Swiss doctor would see me. But a guy who took care of the animals in the barn that we were staying in, because they had us sleeping in barns on the way down, right? In December, January, in Switzerland. He lances the boils, and I somehow survive, and we make it. And at the end of this journey, we arrive in Marseille, and my recollection of that is there's this beautiful, beautiful white ship in the harbor. And even from where I am, I can see, I hear music. I haven't heard music. I hear music coming from the ship. It was a hospital ship that took wounded American soldiers back to the United States, called the Grips Home. And we come on that, we see the ship, and I see women in skirts with makeup, with lipstick, and music, and joy. And it was a kind of an experience that I can't explain, I can't put into words what a magical moment something like that is. There was still some adventure in the process. They initially didn't put us on the white ship, they put us on the black ship going to South Africa. And then there were FBI guys who were checking out our papers, and when they realized that we probably were not German spies, they took us in, and we came to the U.S. and arrived in America. I have another slide here, which I would show you. that was the beautiful white ship that brought us here, and the most amazing experience that I can ever remember is getting to Ellis Island and seeing the Statue of Liberty. And you can't imagine how meaningful the Statue of Liberty is. When my kids were growing up, I would take them there and take them on a boat to let them experience the Statue of Liberty from the water, because that's the way I first saw it. And people were ecstatic. And Ellis Island, whatever stories you've heard about it, was the best place in the world. I had a room with my mother and sister. We were in one room, and it's not separated somewhere, in a normal room. They gave us little school books. I had strawberry ice cream, which has been an amazing thing. So that's kind of the story, and I've always felt blessed because of the experience that I ended up in the best place in the world, which is really this country. So God bless America, and thank you for listening to the story. But I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have.
Mike, thank you for being with us so much. If anyone has any questions, you're welcome to ask.
First of all, thank you so much. Beautiful story. How were you found before you were taken to Auschwitz? Did someone turn you in?
I'm sorry.
How were you captured while you were in Poland? How were you captured?
Oh, that's a great question. As a matter of fact, I should have told that story. Would you believe, and this is part of the thing that's so incredible about anti-Semitism and about hatred. A woman who was a maid in my maternal grandparents' house, who had been taken care of, I'm sure they didn't abuse her, turned us in. She saw us in the street. And by the way, one other thing I should mention, which is really important to mention. Amongst the places we were hidden were by Christians. And I remember spending what must have been a couple of months living under the table in the house of a righteous Christian woman who protected us as long as she could from the Nazis. And if you cannot imagine the risk that these people took to do something like that. I mean, it is the most magnificent gesture. So here you have the horror of mankind and the beauty of the human spirit and what people do. So it's amazing for me. It was an amazing story. Thank you for asking the question.
I have a question as well. First of all, you have the most beautiful spirit, so thank you for sharing that with us. Were you ever separated from your mother and sister, or were the three of you always together? Because that feels like that's probably was a little rare.
The truth is, I don't think we were ever separated. The only time we were separated was when my mother in the ghetto would go out to gather food. And my sister talks about, I was not aware of it, my sister talks about it, and she talks about it as a time when she was terrified, when my mother wasn't there. But other than that, my mother managed to keep us and protect us through the whole experience. And by the way, it is incredible. When we came to the United States, my mother immediately resumed the role of a subservient wife. And my father was tough. He was so tough. He was a brilliant guy. He wanted us to be brilliant. I was not brilliant. He wanted us to achieve the things that he didn't achieve, and he was very, very tough. But my mother, who had protected us from the Nazis, my sister writes in her book, couldn't really protect us from a dad who was, think about it today, kids who have gone through an experience like that would get some therapy, would get some support. They put me into a school. I went to a Jewish school a yeshiva. When I came to this country, I couldn't read English, I was dyslexic. And they're teaching me to read from both sides of a page. And I couldn't, so very disappointing to my dad. I was a good baseball player, though, and that made a big difference in my life, so. Yeah.
Hi. First of all, thank you so much. And how brilliant it was of your father to sort of, I guess, forge your birth certificates. That's incredible. I guess my question, I apologize if you said it, but why was it that your father was in the United States and you and your mother were not?
That's a great question. And there's a kind of a thing that my recollection of the story is that my father came to the U.S. to set things up so that we could come, never imagining, knowing it was going to get bad, but never imagining that this estate, this person who employed half the people in Bielichka, that would become a dangerous place for us. And he thought that this could buy us a little bit of time and for him to be able to come and set things up. My sister tells a different story, which is a very meaningful story also, as her recollection. And so these are stories as we recall them, right? My father was faced with a dilemma. Do I stay with my family in this mess and protect them as best I can? Or do I pick myself up and go someplace to America and see if I can do some magic that could bring them there? I mean, what a dilemma for a person to face. If he had stayed. So, when do you take a risk for life? Is a really meaningful lesson to learn. Yes.
Hi.
As I tell you that I typically don't do this, my friend of 40 years says to me, I've done this Shoah memorial, which is spectacular. And he says, I would like if you would come and speak at the dedication of that memorial. So I said, yes, I would do that. And then all of a sudden I became famous in Connecticut. So, well, in demand all of a sudden. So yeah, that's it.
Hi. Sorry, back here. Thank you for your story. One of the things I found really amazing was the ability to connect with your father and your mother, and for you guys to be able to keep track of one another and be able to get the papers where they needed to be at the right time. How were they able to do that?
As I get the questions, how do I reconnect?
How did you guys maintain communication so you were in hiding through all of these times?
We didn't. My father didn't know where we were.
Then how were they able to get the papers?
How did the birth certificate end up in Auschwitz?
The papers went to the Red Cross. The Red Cross registered us as Americans lost in Europe. But can you imagine? I mean, it's a terrific question from the standpoint of, can you imagine my father in this country thinking he left his wife and children behind and reading what was going on and not knowing anything until that spectacular letter comes to him? I mean, it's a magnificent thing that happened, so yeah. But you wonder why some people get lucky, other people didn't, so.
Thank you for sharing your story with us. You talked a little bit about your father and what it was like growing up with him, and I imagine that you didn't remember him when
when you arrived in the U.S., I imagine that at the time you didn't remember him, right? So what was it like meeting him?
I'm sorry, it's my hearing, not you. So
when you arrived at the U.S., I imagine you didn't remember your father, right? So what was it like meeting him?
My sister looked at my father skeptically when she saw him. Says, this really, because we used to, my mother and sister and I used to hide, and every time we had to do a walk or a hike or something like that, my mother would create a song, Do Tatushu, which is in Polish, to Daddy. Let's go to Daddy. So an image of my father never left my mind. And there was a guy I saw, and he looked like my mother hugged him and loved him. It was my father. I just didn't think about it for a second. My sister was much more reserved and skeptical about him. Who is this guy? Is that really him? But I was so ready for it, father. Anybody would have come along would have suited at that point.
Thank you.
There's a question over there.
I want to say thank you for your story. I just have a quick question. You mentioned earlier that when this all started, you were 5, and I was just wondering, when you finally got back to the U.S., what age were you, just as like a scale of like the whole timeline of this?
Could you say that without the microphone? I think I'll hear you better.
You mentioned earlier that you started that all this started when you were 5, and I was just wondering, what age did you get to the U.S.?
How old were you when you came to the United States?
7. I'm so sorry.
Oh, okay.
We got to the U.S. in February, late February. Actually March of 1945. It was March because I know it was March because it was Purim. And my father took us out, and we went to celebrate Purim. My mother thought he was joking because Purim is a joyous celebration. My mother thought that he had made up that it was Purim, not realizing that it really was Purim. And that was so I know when it was. Yeah.
Thank you.
There's another question over there. I think I can hear you better without the microphone, actually.
Hi. I'm just wondering whether there were relatives that you had that were survived or lost during the war.
I mentioned before that my mother had 13, was one of 13.
Right.
Thank you. 2 sisters survived.
Mm-hmm.
And they were also magnificent women. We talk about heroics yesterday of women. They were magnificent women. One survived by pretending she was a countess, a Danish countess living in France. And she pulled it off, and she survived the war in France. The other one, who dropped off her daughter at a monastery, made it to Israel. The one who had made it to Israel became a very successful entrepreneur in Israel. She built a factory in Israel, and she became a very successful entrepreneur. My other aunt, who was the countess or the duchess, she ended up being a masseuse and developing a big practice as a masseuse, and they both survived. One, my mother's brothers survived. There's some great stories about their survival, but that would take a long other episode to talk about. But, there was a strength and a courage and a dedication that these people had, and they made their lives when we came to rebuild. Paul said, I rebuilt my life. I didn't do anything. I just got here, and America rebuilt me. But other people had to really rebuild their lives.
I'm sure you realize how fortunate your family was, and it's really remarkable how lucky all of you
Yeah,
were.
I mean, 9 out of 13, But that's still lucky, right? 4 people survived.
Okay, this is going to be our last question.
Hi, thank you for being with us tonight. What are some ways that you would describe that this experience has shaped your worldview over the years?
Sorry, I've asked you to repeat it without the microphone, so
Yep.
I can hear you better.
How would you say that this experience has helped shape your worldview over the years?
I think I've always felt very lucky. I've always felt blessed and lucky. Everything I ever undertook to do, I knew I could succeed in because of what I had gone through. There was no challenge too big, and I undertook to do everything, and did some pretty amazing things as a young man because I thought I could. Because if you can get through that, and if you believe in yourself and you believe in God, everything can happen for you. So, made my life. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike, for sharing your powerful and remarkable story. You know that in synagogues around the world this past Shabbat, we read the story of Aaron's 2 sons who mysteriously perished instantly. And the Torah just offers us 2 words, Vayidom Aharon, and Aaron was silent. And in many ways, when it comes to Yom HaShoah, silence is the only true response. It contains everything, all the pain and all the memories and the possibilities that cannot be said in words. And Aaron expresses the deep and real response to tragedy. And as remarkable as Mike's story is, as he said himself, it was not a story of terrible suffering and tragedy like so many others had during this period of time. And we've heard the stories before. And we've felt the anguish that can only barely be imagined, that defy words. And if we were to be faithful, sometimes we would be silent. But if we were to be silent, we can't tell the stories. And the stories have to be told. And so thank you, Mike, for telling the stories. And please, I know this is not something that you are used to doing, but in your sister's memory, please continue to tell the story. And in your parents' memories, tell the story, the great heroes of your story. I think there really are 3 lessons as we get ready for El Malei Rachamim to remember those who were not as fortunate. 3 lessons from the Shoah. The first is that we have to keep telling the stories over and over again, even if it is in the ears of a tired and reluctant world. We owe them that they must not be forgotten. And we remember that in the echoing of silence, that we are the voice for all of those souls who perished. Second, that as the 6 million perished, we live today as Jews, and we ought not turn our backs on the tradition that cost them their lives and for so many gave them ultimate meaning while they lived. And the tradition that led people to light candles even in the darkest of moments in Auschwitz and other places. We owe them a debt to our people and to our past. And finally, that we can never turn our backs on others in this world who suffer. That we live today as witnesses, but also as shlichim, as messengers. That our voices are deepened by the knowledge of what human beings can do to one another, and our responsibility to combat that evil. And the world needs our voice. It needs our presence. And so we remember those 6 million souls as we rise now for El Malei Rachamim.
El Malei Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hamsei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, B'ma'alot Kedoshim Utehorim, Kezohar Harakim Mazirim, Et Nishmot Shisha Million Achinu Ve'achiotenu Shenehergu Al Kiddush Hashem, Ba'al Rachamim Yastirem, Beseter Kenafav Lolamim, V'yitzror b'yitzror hachayim et nishmatam, Adonai hu nachalatam, Ve'yanuchu b'shalom al mishkavam, Ve'nomar Amen. Fully compassionate God on high, to our 6 million siblings murdered because they were Jews, grant clear and certain rest with you in the lofty heights of the sacred and pure, whose brightness shines like the very glow of heaven. Source of mercy, forever enfold them in the embrace of your wings, secure their souls in eternity. Adonai, they are yours. They will rest in peace, and let us say, Amen.
We remain standing for the mourner's Kaddish, and we have these handouts here. You can follow along. Yitgadal Auschwitz, V'yitkadash Lodz, Shemei Rabbah Panar, V'alma Divrach Hirute Babiyar, V'yamlich Malchute Bedanyik, V'chachon V'yomechron Birkanau, Uvchaye Dechol Beit Yisrael Kavno, Ba'agala V'zman Kariv Yanoska, V'yamru Amen. Yehe Shmei Rav V'varach Le'olam L'mei Omaya, Yit Barach V'yish Tabak Thereznienstadt, V'yit Pa'ar V'yit Romam Buchenwald, V'yit Naseh V'yit Hadar Treblinka, V'yit Hale V'yit Halal Vilna, Shemei de Kudisha Bergen-Belsen, Brichu Le'ela Mauthausen, Mincho Birchata V'shirata Dachau, Tush Bechata V'nechemata Minsk, Da'amiran Be'alma Warsaw, V'yamru Amen. Yehe Shlama Rabba Amin Shemaya, V'chayim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael, V'yamru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'imromav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael, V'yamru Amen.
I want to thank all of you for coming this evening. I want to thank Rabbi Ilana Nemitov-Bressler and our team of Temple Israel volunteers for coordinating this evening for our entire community. Thank you to Mike Schell for presenting your story and answering so many excellent questions this evening. I invite you to regather as a community in partnership with our federation for Yom HaZikaron and Yom HaAtzmaut next Tuesday evening, the 21st, at 7 p.m. at Or Hadash in Fairfield. We say, Yehi Zichram Baruch. May all those we remember be a blessing. Invite you to join with us in singing Hatikva.
כל עוד בלבב פנימה, נפש יהודי הומייה, ולפתם מזרח קדימה, עין לציון סופיה. עולב תקוותנו, התקווה בת שנות 2000, להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון וירושלים. להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון וירושלים.